We've all been there, right? You're looking at a super complex blueprint and you're trying to imagine what it's going to feel like in the real world. Well, today we're diving into how immersive tech is completely closing that gap, turning those digital designs into real, walkable spaces before anyone even thinks about laying a single brick.
So let's just jump right in with the big question, and this isn't some fantasy scenario. This is the absolute core reason why virtual reality is such a game changer in design. It's all about catching those incredibly expensive mistakes way early on, back when they're just pixels, not giant, costly problems on a job site.
Okay, so before we get to the solution, we really have to understand the problem. And for decades, pretty much every industry, from construction to car manufacturing, has been stuck with what you could call the flat screen problem.
What this slide really shows us is this huge disconnect. On one side, you've got your 2D drawings. They're abstract. They create what's called spatial ambiguity. Is that pipe supposed to be in front of that beam or is it behind it? Good luck. It makes working together really tough. But then, on the other side, you've got reality, a lived experience. You feel the scale, you get total spatial clarity, and collaborating with your team just works. It's intuitive. Just think about that for a second. We've been asking architects, engineers, and designers to perform these incredible mental gymnastics, trying to translate flat lines on a screen into the complex 3D world that we all actually live in. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. But what if you could just stop translating and start experiencing? And that brings us to the big solution, being able to literally step right inside the design itself. Now, the technical term for this whole setup is an immersive virtual environment, or an IV. And it's way more than just a 3D model on your computer. The key pieces are the headset, the thing that actually puts you inside the world, the controllers that lets you touch and interact with stuff, and of course, the 3D model itself, which is the digital blueprint that brings it all to life. This is probably the best analogy I've ever heard for it. A flat plan, a 2D drawing, that's the brochure. It gives you an idea, a little taste, but an immersive VR experience, that's like booking the flight and actually being there. You feel the space, you get the scale, you can peek around corners. You're not just an observer anymore, you're a participant.
So why is this so much more effective? Well, it's not magic, it's all about cognitive science. Let's dig into the power of something that researchers call presence.
Just look at the difference here. When you're looking at a monitor, what we'd call non-immersive, you're getting a flat, single image. Your brain knows it's just looking at a picture. But with a headset, you get a stereoscopic display. That means a separate, unique image for each of your eyes. That's the trick. That's what creates real depth perception and fools your brain into feeling like you're actually there. It turns observation into a genuine experience.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This is all backed up by a ton of research. Studies like this one from 2021 have actually measured this stuff, and they've shown that the sense of being there, that feeling of presence, is way higher in these immersive systems. So what's the big deal about presence? What does it actually unlock for us? Well, a whole lot, it turns out. You understand spaces on a completely different level. You start spotting errors you would have totally missed on a 2D plan. And because your brain is so engaged, you remember everything better, and working with your team becomes way more natural.
Okay, so that's the science. It's fascinating, but what does it mean for the bottom line? Let's move from the theory to the real-world results and, the actual return on investment.
Take a look at this number. Almost $500,000. What on earth could that represent?
Well, it represents the cost of mistakes that never even happened. On the Penn State Ice Rink project, just one walkthrough in an immersive system let the team find and fix a bunch of design flaws. That one session saved them over $475,000 in changes that would have had to happen during, or even worse, after construction.
Okay, here's another big one. 90%. What could you possibly cut by 90%?
Physical prototypes. That's what. Ford said they slashed the cost of building those super expensive real-world car mock-ups by 90%. They can now test everything from how the dashboard feels to assembly line procedures, all in a virtual model. The savings in time and money are just huge. And for our last number, let's look at the big picture. 177%. A major study by Forrester found that this is the average ROI over 3 years for companies that adopt this tech. But here's the kicker, the part that's even more impressive. The payback period is just 13 months. You make your money back in just over a year. That just goes to show how quickly the efficiency gains and cost savings kick in. And look, this isn't just happening in one or two niche industries. This is everywhere. In automotive, we saw it's about cutting prototype costs. In construction, it's about slashing on-site problems by 2/3. For a company like Boeing in aerospace, it means designing complex things faster. And in energy, it's about training people 4 times faster in an environment where there is zero physical risk. The tech is solving unique problems all over the place.
So let's pull all this together. What are the big things you really need to take away from this whole immersive revolution?
First off, and this is crucial, immersion is not a gimmick. It is a serious cognitive tool that actually makes our perception better. Second, it lets you make that vital shift from just viewing a design to actually experiencing it. Third, the business case is rock solid. The ROI is proven. It saves time, it cuts costs, and it makes the final product better. And finally, it completely tears down geographical barriers, letting teams collaborate inside a project no matter where they are in the world.
At the end of the day, it really boils down to this. Immersive VR is the best bridge we have ever built between the abstract world of the digital drawing board and the complex reality of the physical world.
This tech lets us build with more confidence, with better collaboration, and with fewer mistakes than at any other time in history. And that really just leaves us with one final exciting question. As that line between the digital and the physical gets blurrier and blurrier, what are we going to build next?